Welcome back to the All In Kosciusko podcast, where we explore the big ideas and bold leadership shaping the future of our community. I'm your host, Matt Deuel, and today's episode is a special one. We're sitting down with Bob Vitoux, outgoing president and CEO of OrthoWorx, and Suzie Light, longtime community leader and OrthoWorx board member, to honor Bob's tremendous contributions, explore the impact of OrthoWorx, and look ahead to what's next for the organization and our orthopedic community. Bob, Suzie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. So, Bob, let's dive in. When you think back to jumping into your role, July of 2022, what was it that drew you to OrthoWorx?
Well, there's probably a lot of things, but I think first and foremost, this has always just been a really special community to be a part of. And, I grew up in the northwest corner of the state versus the northeast corner that we find ourselves in now. But, I grew up a farm boy. And, I think a lot of times I analogize being in the orthopedic industry like being a farm kid. Once it's in your blood, it's really, really hard to get it out. And so this was an opportunity to come back into a community that, again, we feel has been really, really impressionable and formidable in our family's journey, and have an opportunity to come back and have impact potentially, but also be in an organization that I happened to be at the seat or at the table when we were formulating it a decade and a half ago.
Yeah, excellent. So when you think back through these last 3 years, what are the things when you think about personally, professionally, you're most proud of, the things that you've been able to accomplish in this role?
Well, I think, first of all, it's always about building for me. So I am really, really honored to think about the team that we've built, both internally on the roster, as we call it, at OrthoWorx, so those that are on the payroll, but also externally. I would say, our board itself was something that, again, Suzie's been there the entire duration, and so she knows where we were at the time of my arrival and where we've come. We're at least 3x in the way of just the quantity of board members, but the engagement is just such a different dimension, 3 years into it.
Yeah, excellent. So, Suzie, Bob mentioned you've been around OrthoWorx since the beginning.
Before it began.
Part of the construction of.
That's right.
And you've served alongside with Bob through his tenure with the organization. Talk to me about, just from your perspective, just Bob's leadership and the impressions he's made, not only on OrthoWorx, but our community through his role.
A tough question, Matt.
Yeah.
Bob has brought a lot of good leadership to OrthoWorx. And, when I said before it was started, Dr. Manahan was at a conference in Indianapolis and heard a psychologist, Dr. Mary Walshock, talk about community development. And he had lunch with Mary at this conference and said, I'm really worried about our community. We're so heavily invested in orthopedics, we don't want to lose any of them. And she said to him, well, what are you going to do about it? And then Dr. Manahan came back to Winona Lake, to Grace College, and talked to his team there, ended up going to Lilly Endowment and expressing much of the same concern. And they said, well, what are you going to do about it? And Dr. Manahan said, well, let's develop something. So he went back to his team at Grace College, and they put their heads together and went to Lilly Endowment with a proposal of how we might be able to engage Grace College to help look at retaining orthopedics. And Lilly Endowment said, good ideas, not big enough. So he went back to Winona Lake, Grace College, with his team, and they put together another plan and took it to Lilly Endowment, and they said, you need to think much bigger. Third time they went, Lilly Endowment said, let's involve BioCrossroads and have BioCrossroads come and look at our community in Kosciusko County and analyze the orthopedic industry as well as look at the whole community.
Yeah.
And BioCrossroads came back with a recommendation to create an entity called OrthoWorx and pair that with the Orthopedic Capital Foundation that could accomplish charitable activities in the way of community development.
Yeah.
So when you think about community and development, think about quality of life. What is education like? What is transportation like? What are the amenities that help not only the orthopedic industry, but the ag community, the community in general, attract and retain employees? Because it's about people, right?
Yeah.
Community development is about people. That's the thing I think that, Bob, you bring to the table so well, the understanding that is relationships with people that matter the most. So OrthoWorx was born in 2015? 2009?
Yep.
Holy smokes. Older than I think. Yeah.
Time flies.
Time flies. And we've had different leaders that have brought different priorities to the table.
Sure.
Bob has been an excellent leader in executing a plan, developing a team, and making work happen.
That's awesome. Really cool. So, Bob, I know, one of the big initiatives of the last 18 months was the opportunity that came to our community through the ORI funds, the $30 million from Representative Snow and Senator Mishler and others that helped to organize it at the State House for us. OrthoWorx was chosen to help deploy that funding. Talk to me about what that opportunity has meant to you to kind of be at the head of all of that.
Yeah. It's truly been the catalyst in my mind in so many ways. Yeah, we had a foundation and we had a beginning, but money, captures people's imagination. And as we often joke and say, we now have 30 million reasons for people to care about what's going on in our community through the deployment that OrthoWorx is doing. It really, again, has been the catalyst that has been the driving force to bring folks to the table. And that's been, as Suzie indicates, it's not just the orthopedic industry. I know that Rep Snow used that as the lightning rod to get the attention of our folks downstate. And again, thank you to Rep Snow, thank you to Senator Mishler, Governor Holcomb, Secretary Rosenberg, Secretary Chambers before him, but we've just really been fortunate to be able to have folks that had a vision of what could make a difference, and OrthoWorx found themselves right in the middle of the action. But I think what I often want to try and clarify for folks is that we're really the deployment organization.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily making all the decisions. Fortunately, we've had a lot of people around the table thinking about the future and vision casting how we would deploy that $30 million.
Excellent. So, Suzie, thank you so much for the history. You gave us a great setup. Bob, for our listeners, who are just kind of connecting into this all in Kosciusko movement and, trying to understand the different components, help them understand, what is OrthoWorx today? What is the work that you all are doing in the community right now?
Yeah, I go back and just a little of that chronology that Suzie alluded to as to how we were conceived, certainly important. And I think, back in that time, our education system wasn't bad, but STEM was not something that even really existed. And so we did the Cambridge study. We identified the need, and that's really what OrthoWorx did at the onset was to focus on what are the opportunities and what are the needs of the organization. And the pillars were formed. Our pillars have really not changed over the 15 years of existence. They have been about talent, they've been about community, and they've been about industry. The heavy predominance of what we think about is really around the talent side of the equation. The $30 million has given us a lot of reasons to care about community, but the talent ties with the industry side of things in such a meaningful way. We know that this industry that we're blessed to have here for the last 130 years is going to continue to evolve. And so our mission at OrthoWorx at the core is to make sure that the orthopedic capital of the world will be here for generations to come. And we do that in a very mindful way so that it is socioeconomically thoughtful, and we want to do it in a way that all that are in our community feel valued and included.
I love that. So as Suzie said, through your leadership, and I couldn't agree more, relationships are such a huge thing for you. And I know for you, talent attraction, talent retention have been big focus points, innovation as well. Talk to me about why those things matter when we talk about what it means to retain and grow the orthopedic industry here.
Well, first of all, I remind people that, selfishly, I'm an extrovert off the charts. And so when they thank me for the time that they got to spend with me, I often remind them that put fuel in my tank as well. But I think it really all starts with relationships. And so, when I arrived, 3-ish years ago, one of the observations I had, coming back into the organization is we had a lot of really great things going on in our community. And it's not that people had purposeful silos, Matt, but it felt as though people were kind of doing their own thing. And so this $30 million coming around really was, again, a catalyst to bring people to the table and start to think about how we could work collaboratively and together. And that's where I love the all-in, Kosciusko branding as to what it means. Advancing lives and livelihood, that's at the core of what we really, really want to do. And I've been fortunate in my career to move a lot of different places. Some people may think that I'm running from something. I would say it's been more chasing something. But Debbie and I have traveled the globe. We've lived abroad, but we've come back here on a handful of occasions, and we're reminded each time we come back here that the uniqueness of what this community has to offer in the way of community itself.
Yes. Yeah.
And really, Bob, those things that Ori is enabling us to address are topics and ideas that have been floating in the community for years before the 30 million came here. They're just enabling us to move forward. And that's why all in is so important, because we need all people to benefit from the quality of life that is here.
Yes. Yeah, and I think what's so neat for me, as I think this is our 4th episode of this podcast. Every single episode, what I'm hearing people say over and over and over again is the community coming together like they never have before. What we're seeing right now, organizations coming together and unifying around this rallying cry of what it means to move things forward. That's an exciting thing.
Couldn't agree more. I think one of the greatest memories that I'll take away, and it still goes on every Saturday, throughout the summertime, is to go down to Winona Lake and show up at the farmers market on Saturday morning, and Mayor Gross talks about the phrase that he likes to think of, and that is neighbors helping neighbors, and creating community. Down there, in the village on Saturday mornings, you see neighbors, interacting with neighbors, and community is really what's happening. And to me, the places that Debbie and I have been, where we felt most at home is where there was community. And that's really, I think, if you're down there on a Saturday morning, if you walk away not feeling like you belong, I think you've missed your opportunity, is what I would say.
Well, and the beauty of it, Bob, is that's happening throughout the county.
Yes.
There's a farmers market in downtown Warsaw and a community surrounding there. There are groups that are gathering for Coffee Klatch. There are groups that are gathering to address art in our community. There are groups that are gathering, and that's building community, building the quality of our life here.
Yes.
Yeah, great reminder. I mean, our county is, pretty long and not maybe as wide, but you're right. There are communities all across our county.
The stuff that's happening in Mentone. So Java Jacks isn't there. They sold to a young family, and they've got a great coffee shop in Mentone where a lot of fun things are happening. They're even selling ice cream there now. I've got to make a trip down. Fun stuff. Yeah. And look at what's happening in Silver Lake. They're building a community center. because community needs that.
Yes, yes. So Suzie, you set up my next question perfectly. When we think about OrthoWorx, it's not just about the orthopedic companies, right? OrthoWorx has influence all over the place in our schools, in our businesses, in our quality of life. Talk to me about, from your perspective, some of those pieces.
So when you think about how the Cambridge study that was done back in 2009 and 10, Warsaw schools embraced the idea of STEM. So for the first school in the Warsaw system was Washington School that embraced STEM. And now I think you've got, I don't know how many that are STEM certified. And what that is doing is not only helping young students understand the opportunity in the orthopedic industry, but also understanding technology in the ag community.
Yes.
Also understanding technology as it relates to health.
Yeah.
I mean, it is huge. And I'm really proud that OrthoWorx started that and has continued it, and that our school systems have embraced that.
Yes. I wouldn't be a good school board member if I didn't say 4 elementary schools now STEM certified in Warsaw, and grown into our middle schools, into the high school.
And just think, you know, when Washington got certified as STEM, you had really intelligent principals at other schools saying, you know, our elementary could be unique in some way. Maybe we should do dual language immersion.
Right.
Maybe we should do something else. And how that has unfolded, it's benefited the children in our community.
Yeah. But cool to see OrthoWorx having fingerprints involved in those things. I know the Discover Me program is a big one in a way that...
It's huge. You know, just think of this. So when I was growing up, if somebody said, go work in industrial factory, the image that were in my parents' mind was not what it looks like on an orthopedic manufacturing floor, where their floors are probably cleaner than many kitchen floors in our community, right? Because it has to be.
Yeah.
So that idea that having a well-paying job that might not require a college education to acquire, it most likely needs post-secondary training of some sort, right?
Yeah.
But maybe not a 4-year degree. But you can get a high-paying job working in a very clean factory, and parents don't understand that. And so what Advance ME, the work that you've been doing, is helping educate kids and their parents about that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome. Okay, so Bob, we're going to get to the moment I know are like, I don't even want to talk about this. It's not what this is about, but you are transitioning. You're stepping into a new role, and transitions and change are always bittersweet. So I want to take a moment just to, give you an opportunity to open up. Why is now the right time for you to make this move? And, you know, beyond that, what gives you the confidence as you look at your OrthoWorx team, knowing that it's in good hands?
Well, I'll try not to get emotional about it, Matt, in my answer. But you know, I don't have a crystal ball as to know when the right time necessarily is. But I think people that know me certainly know that I kind of wear my faith outwardly and try not to be a preacher, but certainly sometimes be a teacher if given the opportunity. But I felt called to come here at the time that I came back 3 years ago. And again, we've talked about a lot of the things that have happened in that time span. And I just want to also say, one of the things that we often talk about is the $30 million, but we also should talk about the $27.2 million that came to Grace College as part of the college and community collaboration grant opportunity as well. And and so I guess what I think about is all the things that have culminated and come together over the last 3 years. And I alluded to earlier that we've built a team. We've built just a really, really remarkable team. And
Bob the Builder.
Yeah. And it's something I love to do, is to build. And I would also say, we've had folks, before my time and even at the arrival of my time that were instrumental in some of the building that went on in our organization as well. So I want to give a lot of credit to what was there before me, when I got there, and then now what I'm fortunate to leave behind is just a really remarkable team. I won't name names because I don't want to get in, and for some reason maybe it gets cut and somebody's name doesn't get in there. But
sure.
But I think the team that we've put together has local connection, which is really, really important. I think they have industry knowledge, which is vitally and critically important. But I also think that they have something that's really, really unique, and that's passion for something that they aspire to do. And so, thinking about the decision, when the opportunity came before me, a month or so ago, I didn't go looking for it, first off. It found me. But it just felt like the right opportunity to continue to build and to go be a part of an organization that I've been at before and I have a lot of respect for. But most importantly, I knew that I could leave this thing and it's in great hands.
Yeah. So tell us where you're going, what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm going to shorten my commute, if you will, and return to an organization called Ambassador Enterprises. Ambassador is a legacy-minded enterprise that invests for 3 returns, and they do impact investing through the financial returns that they generate through their for-profit holdings, and it's an organization that it has almost 5,000 employees, or actually has right around 5,000 employees. They'll generate in excess of $2 billion of revenue across their collective portfolio this year. And I have the good fortune of going back and be their chief financial officer. And most importantly, get an opportunity to be alongside of folks that again, know the value of investing in community.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful it's just down the road, and because of you and your heart for relationships and people, I know we are going to see you around here all the time.
Yeah, and Suzie knows my mom. She's seen her at the farmer's market, and my mom reminded me that she still expects me to be back here frequently. I've had the good fortune over the last 3 years of spending weeknights in the village at our home there with my mom, and my mother-in-law's here as well. So my wife and I will be back, and I would just tell you I will continue to be one of the biggest raving fans for this community, for OrthoWorx, and all the things that are happening.
And all in Kosciusko.
Yeah.
So Suzie, as the board begins the search for new leadership, what is the board looking for? What type of person? What are some of the things that you think about from a qualities and just a vision standpoint?
So we've heard that preserving the culture is going to be important. Making sure that the new person is interested in building relationships. We've got such a good collaborative effort going on among leadership across all groups in Kosciusko County. So we want to make sure that the new person is willing to do that. Don't want anybody who is going to be turf protective. Need to collaborate and link arms with everybody and move forward.
Yes. Well said. So for both of you, if you were to just think and dream ahead 3 to 5 years from now, what would you be excited about when you look at OrthoWorx and orthopedics here in the community and just the growing impact? What would you just be excited to see in the future?
I would be excited to see embracing progress. Making sure that if we are not growing and progressing, we will be dying. That was what Dr. Manahan was worried about back in 2008 and 2009. And we need to make sure that we have got people who are willing to move the needle forward toward progress.
Yeah. And progress oftentimes means change.
Definitely.
Which can be scary.
And uncomfortable. And I admit, I don't like change either. But
right.
I've been around long enough to realize it needs to happen.
That's good. Bob, how about for you?
Yeah, I think just building on what Suzie said, I think progress is really, really key. 3 to 5 years, it's, as fast as time seems to, or things continue to change in short periods of time. 5 years seems like eternity in a lot of ways, but the projects that we've identified through ORI, certainly would love to see those projects along with what's on the Catalyst Corridor project list start to come into fruition, and I think that's certainly realistic. I think Grace is already down the path and working toward some of their projects. We've procured some things with some of our ORI dollars. We've got the amenities program launched. I just think that I think people will be absolutely blown away when they look back 5 years from now if we all lean in. And I think that's the important thing is, as Suzie indicates, change is, by human nature, we generally are not, real friendly or fond of change. But
Sure.
But change is important. You don't need to change for change's sake. But I do think we need to continue to evolve and continue to aspire to what it is that we want to be. And I think this community has been blessed for 130 years to have the orthopedic industry here. The ag business has been here even longer than that.
Right.
And so if we can find a way, as Suzie indicates, to really bring connectivity of those two really vital industries and then all the myriad of other things that we have going on in the way of entrepreneurial and innovation activities, I think the sky's the limit. I will also say that I'm hopeful that 5 years from now we will see a US 30 project that's underway.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a critical connecting part of what it is that we aspire to see Northeast Indiana continue to grow and mature into.
Yeah, excellent. So as our listeners and viewers are taking all this in and, they're thinking, I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of some of what OrthoWorx is doing specifically. How can they engage effectively?
Well, first of all, visit the website for All in Kosciusko and read about what's happening.
Yeah.
And then take action. A lot of times we hear from folks who have negative things to say. And not often do we hear from folks who have positive things to say. So I want to encourage our listeners, our viewers, be a positive force for good change, not change for change's sake, right?
Sure.
But
Yeah.
there's a way that we can move forward.
Yeah.
All in.
It's good.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I think that, again, back to, momentum, how does momentum get going? It starts, I think about the Cub Scout days, how did you start a fire? You start with a spark and then you fan it and it becomes a flame. And so that's really what we're after. I think that, by and large, we've got 80,000 people in this county. On a nighttime basis. We have more than that on a daytime basis, particularly in our summertime. We're blessed to have, 100 lakes in our community. We have all these natural resources. But it's really trying to harness that natural thing that is in our backyard, but also coupling that with some dreams that we have, and then take this money that we've been, afforded and really investing it properly. But I just want to emphasize what Suzie said is it's easy a lot of times to be critical of something.
Yeah.
I think it's often, maybe not as comfortable to just, to jump in. But I think, again, this all-in concept is really what we want to drive home. And, it's your opportunity. If you're listening to this, as Suzie said, raise your hand, look for a place, and get yourself plugged in, because this is not going to be an easy lift, and it's not going to be done by a handful of people. It's going to take, it's going to take a village, as we say. Right?
Yeah. And it's not going to happen overnight. We are talking truly the long haul, right?
I think that's a really great reminder, because what I think a lot of times that we talk about is, we need dozers on the ground or we need cranes in the air so that we can show people that something's happening. But I think it's a really good reminder that, it'll feel a little glacier-like in some of the movement early on.
Yeah.
But I'm a big believer that winning begets winning.
Yeah.
And once we get the flywheel going, which I think it's already turning, look out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I think some of the things too that I'm learning is with some of the infrastructure pieces, there's a little bit of chicken and egg of what comes first, right? And sometimes we invest in things that feel like, why are we doing that? And it's helping to create that platform for the other things to come in.
So one of the things that I've learned that I didn't realize before when we're looking at development in our community, a lot of times people will say, well, did that deal get done under the table? Like, how come I didn't know about this? And what I've learned is the cadence to development and how when a developer comes in, there is a rhythm to how that needs to progress. And a lot of times it is long before it becomes public knowledge. And that is not trying to hide anything. That is because that is the flow of how development happens. And so having people be a little more, take a breath, relax. Nobody's trying to pull the wool over and nobody's getting their pockets lined, right? This is progress. It's growth. It's important.
I think it's a really great reminder. And, that's probably one of the greatest learnings for me, even in the last 3 years, is to see all that it takes to actually bring a project into existence. I mean, you make a really brilliant point, Suzie. And again, there are times where information does have to be, held more tightly, depending on the nature of the project itself, depending on who's involved. We have the good fortune of having some public companies in our midst, and those companies have to live by rules and regulations in the way of disclosure. And so, again, Suzie, you really hit a great point, and that is, trust is what I would say.
Yes.
Trust in the folks that are leading. I will say that we may not always have all the answers, or at least all of the answers at our fingertips. So we love feedback, we love input, but let's talk about it in a positive light and instead of a destructive manner.
Yeah. Excellent. Very good. Very good. Well, Bob, like we said, as we wrap this thing up here, this isn't the last time we're going to see you or hear from you, but you are a teacher, someone with a lot of wisdom that I've certainly benefited from. Any final reflections or thoughts from you here today that you'd like to pass on to the community or the folks that have supported you through OrthoWorx?
I'm not going to name any names because I've just been so blessed, throughout my career to be surrounded by so many talented people. I will offer one set of names, and that's my mom and dad. And my dad's been gone for almost 35 years, but there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about all the many, many things that he taught and instilled in me. My mom is still alive and again, continues to be one of my biggest cheerleaders and biggest raving fans, and she's taught me a lot. But I think the encouragement I'd give the listeners is, learning and growing is really rewarding. And so, continue to lean into opportunities where you can learn and you can grow. I think when we're knowers, it's kind of like not doing anything. You begin to die, or you begin to not be as relevant. And so, I think as I leave this post and go to yet another opportunity in my career, I'm reminded that there have been a lot of people who have invested in our organization. I'm thankful for an amazing board that's come together. And again, I just want to reiterate that the team that I know that we leave behind is a team that is going to take it to new heights. And I have every reason to believe that whoever follows in my footsteps they'll take it to another level themselves.
Yeah. Well, Bob, I want to personally say thank you, and on behalf of our community, thank you for your faithful and steady hand your creative spirit and your collaborative leadership. You have absolutely left a huge mark, not only on OrthoWorx, but on Kosciusko County. So we wish you nothing but the best in your next chapter, and can't wait to see how that all unfolds. But thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for your kind words. And again, thanks for this opportunity. To have my good friend Suzie alongside of me is really a special treat. Suzie was there in the interview process. I remember it well.
Yeah. And
I will say that my other good friend David Finley reminds me that it was a 3-year commitment. And so when I say 3 years-ish, I almost made it. I remind him that I didn't start getting paid till July of 22, but I really started working before that. But
we're not retroing your time those 2 months.
But again, all kidding aside, it's been a remarkable journey, and I just look forward to see what all gets created.
It's great. Suzie, thank you for being here. Bob, thank you so much. To our listeners and our viewers, if you want to learn more about OrthoWorx and their ongoing work to strengthen the orthopedic capital of the world, visit orthoworxindiana.com. And as Suzie mentioned, if you want to get a look at all of the projects going on, check out allinkosciusko.com. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that you automatically receive future episodes. And remember, now more than ever, it's time to be all in for Kosciusko.